Speaking about Sonny, it is time to bring in Mr. Sonny, and that is Jim Lynch. It's time for Cover Your Assets. Jim is an independent voice on Wall Street, the economy, and politics. He brings well over 40 years of experience to those subjects and more. Ladies and gentlemen, let's bring him in as we're in that holiday mode from Passover to Easter. And well, good morning, Jim.
Sunny one, so blue. Good morning. How you doing?
I can't complain, Jim. You know, it's inhaling and exhaling here. Got my second shot on Friday of last week, and so in the next 12 days, I will be totally protected against COVID, maybe.
Somehow I think you're pretty well protected anyhow. But that's a great segue. Vaccines. I was happy to listen to a little Morning Joe this morning, Joe Scarborough, making an impassioned plea to all of the citizens who somehow don't want to protect themselves, and in another way, equally as important, protect others. He brought up his son, who has some medical problems. He brought up the fact he'd love to take him to a ball game again, but if people refuse the vaccine or refuse to take it, then he's going to be hamstrung in terms of doing certain activities, which with a father and son is really a great one. That said, folks, and this is going to lead to our next topic, you know, you really have to look inside yourself and say, someone told me, and I'm going to tell you now, in the 1918 pandemic, and no, Marshall, I was not there. That said, 1918, once again, people refused masks. Part of it was the politicians, including the President of the United States, denied it. Isn't that amazing? 100 years ago, and they had a record amount of deaths. That said, there's no reason on this green earth why we should not take care of ourselves. More of us have taken flu shots, but even there, not that many, considering the tremendous benefit of a flu shot. But if you look back in our history to polio, which is in the 50s, I guess it was, and the federal government just clamped down and said, okay, we're going to solve this damn thing. And everybody somehow had a polio shot. Of course, the federal government at that time had the advantage. It just came off winning the Second World War, where everybody was together in the effort. And I think probably that energy, there was still a lot of it left, so people saw a crisis, and they adapted, and they took care of it. So this leads me to my next topic, and these topics, obviously, I'm going to cover this morning. Really, there's a lot bigger ones, a lot of bigger story that I can't tell in 26 minutes or something. Democracy is being challenged by what I'm going to have to call the anti-democratic Republican Party. It's being challenged. Voting rights are being challenged at the local level in, I think, 42 states to try and change the way, basically, the state legislature approves the votes of the individual citizens. Let's be very clear on one thing. The Constitution says everybody has the right to vote. The Constitution does not say that any government, local or federal, has the authority to take that vote away. And what Georgia is proposing is, one, the opportunity to prevent a lot of people from voting, and two, they're trying to say, well, we're going to decide exactly if we believe this is right or wrong in terms of the voting. We have machines, we have paper, it's perfect, it worked well, everybody said the last election went well. So these Georgian politicians now kowtowing to that fascist Trump, they need to be stood up and stood down. But you should stand up as a voter. I don't care whether you're a Republican, a Democrat, or from Mars. You have a vote. If you look at Miramar, where they're getting slaughtered in the street, if you look at Egypt, if you look all over the place in history, where there were no democracies and you didn't have the right to vote. People were slaughtered in the street. So if we want to keep our democracy, start hollering, call your people in anywhere and that you can have access, be you local or on a federal level, and tell them we want voting rights. Now, Joe Biden and the Congress are going to try and sanctify the rights that we already have. It's important that you get on the pipe, that you get on Twitter, you get on the Facebook, and demand your right to vote. It is in the Constitution. And by the way, we better wake up. There are a lot of people with a lot of money who want to prevent you from voting or prevent you from voting the way they want you to vote. One is the Koch brothers. They have billions of dollars. Right wing, they want it their way rather than the highway. Why? They want to dupe the people to become enslaved to their way of thinking. Wake up, start dealing with this, start talking about it. Another topic I'm going to cover, which is vast, so I'll just give you a few things to look at, and you can figure it out for yourself. In 2017, yes, that was a good year, a fellow named John, John, Palovitz, PAVLOVITZ.com is his address. You can see his article on the Twitter. I put it there. It was on there previously. The title of the article is Christians Making Atheists. He projected, or rather cited, what was happening in this country, which has come full-blown, which is the fact that people running organized religion have a power to do things. They have a power to take care of the people or the corporations and the people who give them money. According to John, they were in the process, or had been in the process, of making atheists out of people who had wanted an organized religion so that they could come together in a very serious humanitarian loving way. The article is a great one. Please read it. And then the segue, and then I'll go on to the boss here. Today's Washington Post. The church membership is no longer a majority in the United States of America. I think that's the first time that that's ever happened. And if you think of the article I just cited, it's easy to understand why people turn against organized religion when the evangelicals basically have blessed. They have blessed because of the money what Donald Trump has been doing. A predator on women, a thief, a bankrupt, a degenerate, you name it, he plays it. He's stolen money from you and every taxpayer out there. That said, get on the stick, read these things, learn about it. If you feel, oh, it's this, oh, it's that, fine. That's up to you. If you want to be a full-blown, intelligent person, you need to get the information. And there's nothing wrong with the Washington Post or the New York Times. You can get it online, and you can decipher whatever you want. It's kind of print, so you don't listen to somebody like me yelling and screaming on the television or on the radio. Jill and I and the boss here have talked about the need for getting more good information. And this is a great reminder, based on what we're going through here, where these state governments are basically trying to usurp your vote, where we have idiots out there believing the lies that Donald Trump told them. 500,000 people are dead from the virus. 400,000 of them are at Trump's door. Columbia University did a study on it. Dr. Brinks of his task force, his main enabler, finally came true on CNN last night, rather Monday night, in terms of this could have been prevented. She said, even though she enabled Trump by lying, she said it could have been cut off at 100,000 deaths. So wake up. If you're not awake, wake up to the truth.
Well, on talking on some of the things that you brought up, the problem with what Georgia's doing and with what other states are doing, what they don't realize is it is only a temporary fix for their problem. To relegate and to take away places for black Americans, brown Americans, red Americans, yellow Americans, to take away the places where they can vote. Demographics are not on the side of the states that are doing that. I mean, you can look at the last election, and Georgia definitely became the canary in the coal mine, but you can take a look at elections in Texas. You can take elections at other places that have been solid red states. People forget that at one time Texas was a blue state. And Georgia and Louisiana. But Georgia shows you that if you give minorities in this country, if you give minorities ample chance to vote, and that is by having more polling precincts, by having mail-in voting, by having the ability to cast your ballots in advance, you're going to find out that more and more people will vote. And this country is well on its way to becoming a country where people who are white will be in the minority. It might not happen in 10 years or 15 years, but the demographics don't lie, and they're unmistakable. So all these plans being put into effect to keep down the minority vote might be effective for a short while, but sooner or later, just look at South Africa. I mean, it happens. It's going to happen. And what's interesting about what these states are doing is the United States, the way we run elections, is every state has the responsibility to set up the elections the way they want. But the voting rights acts that have happened over the years have helped minority voters. So once again, the federal government will have to set up some broad overview where states can set up what they set up, but then test the legality of it before the next presidential election. So it's going to be interesting to see exactly how this happens. But Georgia was a big slap in the face to a lot of people, where you had a black man and a Jewish man win United States Senate seats, and you also had in that same election a Democrat win the presidential election in Georgia. And it shouldn't have been much of a surprise, because Georgia and the metropolitan areas have been slowly becoming the areas that deliver the votes. And I think it's at this time where, if you are an American and you're sitting out there, have to understand that the minority vote put Joe Biden in office. The minority vote put Joe Biden in office as president. The minority vote put both Democratic senators in office in Georgia. And the rest of you folks who thought this country was going in the wrong direction owe a debt of gratitude to the minority vote. And it's now your job as voters to enable and to see that minority voters still get their fair shake in the ability to vote. It's all our responsibilities. Without the minority vote, the 70-some million votes for Donald Trump would have gotten him reelected president. Joe Biden even outpolled Barack Obama by millions and millions of votes. All those votes, those different votes, were minorities, and also women that were starting to filter back to the Democratic Party. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens over the next couple of years. But you're right, Jim. It is everybody's responsibility to see that the minorities that basically pulled through this election still keep that right to vote early, to vote in a lot of different ways. That's just such an important thing. And when you talk about, Jim, when you talk about pandemics, I'm old enough to remember I got my polio shots. I got all these shots when I was young, and there was some controversy. There's people that, there's always been and there always will be people who do not trust vaccinations. Those people don't bother me, okay? It's a deep-founded belief that they have. Whether it's accurate or not isn't for me to decide, but they've been that way their whole life, and they'll be that way their whole life. What so many people are missing out, Jim, and I don't know, maybe if you want to talk about this, is that the flu season was non-existent this year. Non-existent. Okay? Just about non-existent. And people in medicine looked into it. And you know what the big difference was in the flu season this year than any other season, Jim?
What's that?
Masks. Even though there's a solid 30% of Americans to 35% of Americans that don't want to wear masks, having that other 65 to 70% wearing masks, it's no lie that the flu was not able to be transferred at the rate that it normally is, just simply by social distancing and the masks. It's an incredible thing that nobody talks much about. And they should, because the two basic, simplest things in the world have really basically brought the flu to its knees for this year. And when you look at the vaccinations, Connecticut now, if you're 65 or older, 80% of the people have gotten both their shots in Connecticut. But we are still seeing, over the past week or so, hospitalizations and deaths start to rise again in Connecticut. And the hospitalizations are rising because younger people now are susceptible to more and more of the different strains. People have got to understand that if you don't want to get vaccinated, that is your absolute right. You don't have to get vaccinated. No one can force you to get vaccinated. Yeah, your employer, that's something different because they have a private building. That's something totally different. But the United States government is not going to force you to get vaccinated. So it's, we live in amazing times, Jim, and with the rollout of the vaccinations and with what's going on, people are still divided, more divided than ever when it comes to masks and everything. But a simple look around you will show you that, masks and social distancing conquered the flu this year and helped curb the spread of the virus. Those are amazing news stories that should be talked about more. And, not the strains that are coming out. You look at viruses and you look at infections. They mutate all the time. The flu mutates year to year, sometimes twice a year. COVID-19 has mutated to so many different forms. So people have to get past the politics. They really just get past the politics. I'm not asking you to listen to people that say you should get vaccinated, and I'm not asking you to listen to people that say you shouldn't get vaccinated. I'm asking for you to take a look within yourself and make that decision on your own. Don't make it a political decision. Don't make it a decision based on an election. And this is where the media is so at fault. Present to the people that, don't say you're not going to get a vaccination because Donald Trump lost the election. It shouldn't mean anything because Joe Biden won the election that you're going to get the vaccination. Just do the proper research and understand. And if you want to stand by whatever you think, that's fine. But when it comes to masks and social distancing, we've got to stay on the ball here, Jim, because whether people want to believe this or not, things are going not in the right direction that way. And people have got to wake up and understand that. But getting back to voting, Jim, well, you've been around longer than I have, and I've been around long enough to know that just people do a Google search on Jim Crow and Jim Crow laws, and you'll understand how serious of a situation we are in. You can't be that little Dutch boy with your finger in the dike, because you know what? Sooner or later, that dike is going to explode. And that's what's going to happen. That's what's going to happen with voting rights. People are going to wonder why minorities are getting aggressive, and they're going to get aggressive because they're seeing their rights being taken away, and that can lead to only bad things to happen in the future.
Your point is so incredible for people who, your various points, but the one point that I really am stuck on is, if people really take in the information you gave them regarding the flu and how it's been overcome by the vaccines and by the masking and so forth, if they can take that in, if they're an anti-vaxxer, and just realize there's proof that this vaccine, that this masking is effective. And I hope anybody who has a problem with a mask or a vaccine takes this in and realizes that factually what's going on is benefiting us as human beings. In this instance, preventing the flu, which has been a problem every year. Terrible. That said, in terms of minorities eventually becoming even more significant and possibly becoming more significant in running the country, it is very important to understand that as these minorities improve, as they step forward and they want to participate in their government, as they do things to help everybody, black, white, and green, to get better educated, get better health, that's going to make this country better than ever. We need a complete country, a country that is powerful because it's operating on all cylinders. And that's every human being here. We need to lift people out of poverty. We need to lift them out of sickness. We need to lift them out of lack of knowledge, out of the lack of a job. This will make us powerful as a country. The Koch brothers have their billions. Most of us don't have billions. If we do want to become more self-sustaining and more secure in our finances, we need to get together as people, 300 million of us, and work together. And that's working together, whoever and whatever you are. Just one last point on what Marshall has said. It's inevitable. These minorities are going to be more and more significant. Just look at the local news, look at the national news, look everywhere. The people who want to make money are putting people who are very qualified on as broadcasters, as experts, and so forth. A fellow named Dance, who is very prolific from the standpoint of cybersecurity and so forth. Guy is brilliant, okay? Countless people out there who are not exactly like everybody out there. They're brilliant. They've got something to add. They're human beings. They have souls. They have hearts. They have consciousness. So let's be happy and let's get it together here. Let's take advantage of our resources. In this instance, human resources.
Yep. All right. Jim, a pleasure as usual.
Indeed, it has been a pleasure. And, they're going to call you Two-Shot Miles from now on.
That's right.
I see you on that Facebook.
That's right.
You're doing a great job.
All right, Jim.
I'll talk to you.
Take
Have
care.
a great week.
Bye-bye. Jim Lynch and Cover Your Assets this morning here on The Breakfast Club. All opinions expressed are those of the people that express them and don't represent anything else at all.